Hello guys and welcome to the second part of my two-part video series on Guts Poker this month. And yeah, let's hope we get into a lot of interesting spots, a lot of spots to learn from for you and me. And yeah, without further ado, let's jump right into the action and see what awaits us. I'm playing 3 tables as in the last video, 2 anonymous tables and 1 normal table. I will try to say like in the top left, in the bottom, and in the top right when I refer to a particular table. Hope everything's clearly viewable for you guys. Should be. Seems fine. Ace. You already get excited seeing the ace of hearts and then you get the 3 of spades and you're like, that's not too exciting. Easy fold with the king 3 as well. Ace 8, also an easy fold. Would never open that in the MP position. Definitely in the cutoff sometimes, not always, depending on the players behind. Definitely always from the small blind and from the button. The ace 8 off is not the best ace, but its kicker is reasonable, or its side card rather. 5-3 suited. Once again, pretty trivial fold from the middle position. I generally do advocate, let's put it like this. You can definitely open reasonably wide, but you shouldn't like get completely out of line. You should still like have hands that play somewhat well, especially if you're like not the most experienced player. You don't really want to enter too many flops with hands like 7-3 suited, because they're just simply harder to play. Oh, pocket hands. There we have the first playable hands. Well, if this guy opens and everyone folds, I'm gonna shove it into him. Given he has 20 blinds, 22 blinds. That's a bummer. Another opening. I'll take these 2 guys as recreational. Shifter. There's a pretty good guy, pretty good player called Shifter. On stars, it's probably not the same guy though. Well, we do get a button open for 3x, which is a bit bizarre as a button opening. Sizing. Oh, so we do get the small blind plus button 3 bets, which is still the positions where people 3 bet the most. So with our hand, we will continue in one way, and I think the best way is not to cold call, which a lot of people would do, but to cold 4-bet and then fold to a jam. Our sizing here will be around 2.2x his thing, so I guess around 1150 seems appropriate. And then we will still fold to a jam, because versus the cold 4-bet he will react relatively straightforward. If he does continue via flat, we can reasonably play a lot of flops. This one not particularly good. He definitely can have some ace queen, some ace jack, some jack 10 suited, king queen suited. Not the worst texture for him. And if he does happen to have hand like 9s or 8s, he's generally going to check down and not bluff. It's not the worst texture for us either. We can definitely have hit the spot reasonably well. We still have aces, kings, queens, jacks. We still have hands like ace king. We still have hands like ace queen. Anyways, I would start this off with a check and not a range bet, just because I don't think he's gonna do a massive amount of mistakes versus a bet, so I think I'm better off by just checking back. Queen jack jack texture, we don't have a diamond in our hand, we're just gonna check fold this one. Could arguably see bet small, but I would rather want to have a diamond. So recreational opens, we are gonna 3-bet him for value here with the ace jack suited. Holding the ace 4, and with the pocket 10s now we could consider to get some value and protection on the turn. I don't think we're particularly off beat on the turn, only really by ace queen or king queen, but those hands also quite often lead the turn here. So I don't mind taking a small step, getting called by hands like 9s and 8s, maybe like ace 10, ace king, and also get some protection versus a hand like ace-5 suited, ace-4 suited. So I'm going to step here relatively small for like a quarter pot, and then I'm going to check back river. This is obviously pretty thin, but it's not only a value bet, but it's also a protection bet. Like if he does happen to have a hand like, let's say, ace-4 of spade, ace-4 of diamonds, for instance, he still has like a reasonable amount of equity, given he can counterfeit us and can hit the ace. And I don't think 9s or 8s are going to fold to this. Pretty good result to just take it down there. With the king-jack, we just make a relatively standard 1/3 c-bet, could make it 1/4 pot. And now we're just going to check back and realize our equity. I think on this turn he's not going to have too much trouble defending properly. And I think the runout is pretty good for him and pretty bad for me, so I'm not going to do a lot of bluffing. I wouldn't expect the bluff here to be too good. Also, we could win versus him like queen 10, queen jack. Him leading there is certainly fine. We will just fold. King 8 suited with a lot of weaker bets behind. I would maybe open, but generally folding from MP. So with the 10s, like you should not be like to make this an overall general topic. You should not be too focused about like you should not be stuck in like thinking in a pattern like, am I betting for value or am I betting as bluff here? Because you quite often do want to bet for protection, which these days is pretty common, I would say. It's still worth pointing out that you don't just bet to get called by 9s there. I would even argue that the main reason you bet there is actually for protection. Or it's at least a big reason why you do bet there. This doesn't mean you should just recklessly bet anything and just call it protection. Obviously it has to make some sort of sense. But right there it did make a decent bit of sense. It's also like a big point why we can bet there is that his double check range is definitely not protected enough there. He's not gonna have Jack X really at any substantial frequency. He's not really gonna have a good queen at any substantial frequency. So we're just not beat that often enough, right? Like it's always a mixture out of like, can we get caught by worse? Can we do get protection? Does our hand gain something out of the protection? And are we just simply, how often are we beat on that turn? And given that situation, we wouldn't be beat that often. So right here, given he posted and then called versus our relatively big isolate, I think I'm gonna just see what this hand. I think he's gonna have a lot of random hands that would fold. I do want to see a turn with my hand. I don't really want to check call. So this is once again not really a bluff. It's kind of just like a merge. And now I'm gonna just check fold the turn because I do think once he basically I think he has a bunch of ace X. He sometimes has 10. I don't think a lot of better hands are folding if you bet turn. Actually, I don't think any better hand really folds if you bet turn. And we could still have the best hand, and we could just go for check check and realize for free. It just has ace jack, which is not folding at any street. So this guy limps, and now c-bet's relatively small. I'm gonna call once with my king. I'm not too thrilled about this in the top left, but yeah, pretty good run out overall. The king 7 is just not really gonna be a value bet here. I mean, if I would ever value bet a king here, which I might, it would be like king jack. Yeah, probably be king jack at the bottom. And I would value bet probably any ace here. But the king 7 is just really not going to cut it. The kicker is just too weak. And the bet check bet line is a line that's notoriously underbluffed over any environment. Any environment I check like the mass database analyzes on basically tells you the bet check bet line is going to be underbluffed. So that's a general thing you can just write down. So we should overfold versus the bet check bet line. Which, by the way, also means we are incentivized to value bet pretty thinly on that river, because another another thing we get out of MDA, which refers to mass database analysis, tells us that people are not value betting rivers thinly enough. So they are not bluffing that line nearly often enough, and they are really not value betting that super thinly enough, right? So if you do have a hand like ace-8, let's say there, you definitely do want to lead there, because you can't really expect him to reopen the action with a bluff that often, at all. And he's not really going to value bet a hand like king-jack, which he should not really. But with our hand, we had a pretty straightforward check fold. I think doing anything else there would be kind of bad. I mean, leading like a quarter there can't be that bad. But yeah. Pocket 8s are probably going to exploitively flat call. The 10-9, I'm going to throw in a 3-bet here. I'm not doing this like extremely often here, but at least sometimes. Flatting the 8s, yeah, it's pretty like, I don't know, just in my opinion the best option we do have after pocket 8s pre-flop. And once he checks, he will not really protect his checking range, so we can quite liberally stab. And once again, this hand kind of gets a lot out of getting protection from him, and it can certainly get a decent bit of value. So we certainly have a hand that wants to bet, and we have a hand that also wants to bet turn, because we certainly can get called by a hand like ace high. We certainly can get protection by a hand like queen jack of diamonds. If you ever check the hand like queen jack of spades on the flop, we certainly still do want to bet versus that hand. Could have pocket 7 sometimes, and generally just gonna bet the ante on the turn for roughly around half pot. For protection and value, yeah, we can be weak sometimes. You surely could have pocket 9s or jacks sometimes. We also could have just had ace king and folded, and it's a pretty good result. So once again, it's just like a mixture of like you're not beat that often, your hand gains a lot from protection, and you can get a decent bit of value. The ace-10 here, I'm tempted to isolate this weaker player, but I think the ace-10 off I'm just gonna mark. In pocket 10s here, I'm gonna throw in a 3-bet given positions for value. If he does 4-bet, without any further reads, I would just fold my 10s here. With like a read that he's like 4-betting somewhat frequently, I would definitely shove or call. But versus unknown as a standard, I would 3-bet fold the pocket 10s there. So one fish left on the top right table, sadly. One fish down. Few trivial folds here. Gonna take the time and take a sip of my water. Folding the 8-5 suited, bottom of opening range gonna be 8-6 suited. In some tables I might open the 8-5 suited. 4-5 suited in MP. I mean, this is like really close. This is like either this is my bottom or 5-6 suited. I'm just gonna open it for the purpose of education, getting into spots, playing hands, getting a bit adventurous. Knight it off, I'm gonna open just because we do know. This is the limp of the fish. I think I will complete my hand. I think it's worth half the big blinds. Do flop a nuts draw. Not gonna lead here, given low amount of equity we do have. Just gonna check and hope to see a free turn. I'm just not gonna peel the pretty substantially big bet here, but it's a guy that definitely has a bunch of good hands here. I think he can quite easily have 5-6, king 5, king 6. And I would at least want to have an open ender there to continue probably. Or maybe like a gutshot with a backdoor flush draw. Can't be the worst play to call the gutshot there, but it's out of position. Not really gonna make us money. Good old quick slick in the big blinds. Folding a few bad hands. And waiting to see what happens here. So people certainly do like their 3x opens, it seems. We're gonna 3-bet with the 10 deuce. I mean, we're really not gonna be beat that often here. I think we can go for a min bet. And on the turn, once again, I don't really think he checks a queen on the flop after limping. He could check a better 10 occasionally, but we also could just be beat and we still get a lot of protection. So we'll bet 1/3 again. Now we'll check back river. Queen 7 suited, I'm gonna open. Yeah, pretty good result of the 10 deuce with the good old Doyle Branson. Loosey goosey open here with the Queen 7, but I do think people are overfolding the big blind in general. And given my reduced preflop sizing, I don't need to see a fold that often. I'm gonna start by c-betting 1/3 here. I do want to see a turn. I do want to buy myself the ability to see a turn. I will barrel pretty aggressively. So we did cold forward him before. So I kind of feel like he also did call versus the cold forward, so he's probably not giving cold forwards too much respect. So I think I will actually fold the 10s this time. Also a bit deeper, which makes me shy away a bit. So this turn is pretty okay for his range. We do pick up a gut shot. I do think he floats a lot of ace highs on the flop, which we can just now fold him off. So I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to try to realize my equity here and fold him off a hand like ace 10. Certainly don't expect this bet to work super often, but given we do have equity, like for example that would have been a pretty okay river. Once we get raised there, we just get out and we are really straightforward and nitty. We are uncapped, we have a lot of good hands. There's no reason to believe he's getting out of line there. So we just instantly mark. I mean, we have a hand that just always folds there, but we would also fold a decent bit of better hands there. Yeah, with the 10s we could have gone for the cold forward again, but we just cold forward him like a few hands before. Didn't feel like the success rate of that cold forward was like that amazing. And it's a pretty close hand to begin with, like would not cold forward pocket 9s there. That's gonna be pretty close. Also the positions were different than the last time. Last time it was small blind versus button 3-bet, this time it was small blind versus cutoff 3-bet, which is substantially more nitty. Pocket kings. Well, now we don't mind getting cold forward or whatever happens. I want to get my money. Preferably not versus aces though. Preferably versus pocket kings. Preferably versus the queen of spades, queen of diamonds. Folding the ace 9 here and flopping top set on a really dynamic texture. I don't really think we get a ton out of checking our hand. I don't want him to check back and pot control. I do think he has a lot of continues on this texture. So I would start by betting. Betting around 2/3 pot here. Just because like he is gonna be pretty static. He's not gonna fold a 10, he's not gonna fold hand like ace jack, ace queen, he's not gonna fold hearts, he's not gonna fold a king, he's not gonna fold queen jack, he's not really gonna fold hand like jack 9. So he's gonna call if he has a continue kind of regardless of my c-bet sizing. Not 100% regardless, he's not 100% inelastic here, but he's pretty inelastic. I can say pocket 7s are just gonna fold mostly. So we're gonna target like the higher, like the Broadway hands, which all Broadway hands are gonna call our bet there. So people would kind of fall into the trap of like slow playing your top set there, but it really on that board doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Because there are also like not a lot of hands that can get super out of line there. Because he has an underpair, he's just gonna check back, you know. The king 5 is gonna be close. Given rake is still relatively high, I want to fold the king 5 so that give us increased 3x open. But certainly somewhat close. And right here I'm just gonna size up. As a perceived somewhat weaker player, I'm gonna size up my hand. I'm just gonna hope he has a king and go for 3 big streets. Depending on runout, of course. And he also has a lot of other continues on the flop. I would slow play, I would pot control some hands here, like some weaker king X's, but aces is just too strong to do so. We're just gonna go for 3 clean streets of value. If we do get raised at any point, it's a bit annoying because he did just raise. I think this one, no, I think the queen 7 actually was on the top left. I'm confusing it, I think. So, I mean, we're just gonna, this might look really nitty to you, but once again, we are uncapped. We don't have any reason to think he's getting out of line so far. If he keeps on raising us post-flop, we will start to adjust, but we are kind of wrapping a range of like king queen plus there, or a good draw. So why would he ever have big reason to raise us there? Given the big blind is actually short stack, I'm just gonna min raise here, adjusting my opening sizing given the big blind stack there. He did min 3-bet, so I guess we now have the volatility profile. Like, raised us in a weird spot and now min 3-bets us. Or like not really min, but really, really tiny. I think with the queen 5 we're actually in a pretty dicey spot here given sizing. It's really weird with the queen 5 suited. I did check my database on such spots, and I do think it's actually slightly better as a fold, but I don't mind defending this given the sizing. Just gonna be pretty hard to play with a hand like queen 5 suited. But I would certainly defend really wide there. Like, I would not fold in like queen 8 suited there, for instance. Never. But having a lack of connectivity, I will just fold that hand. And yeah, with the aces, I mean, if you think about it, we are completely uncapped on that turn. He's not just gonna randomly raise hand like king jack at any real frequency. Or at least we don't really have the confidence level that he is, right? So we are uncapped. We only short strength. So I'm just gonna fold. And would continue with my 2 pairs and better. Which for the serve I'm gonna have king 8, king 9, 8 9, 8 8, 9 9, king king. I'm gonna have really good draws like jack 10 of spades, queen jack of spades, queen 10 of spades, which have an easier time calling his raise than in a hand like aces. Also, you have to think about like this. If he was the aggressive type of guy that's gonna aggressively raise you, why would he wait for the turn? Why wouldn't he just raise on the flop already? If he was the guy that's gonna raise a gut shot there like queen jack, why is he waiting for the turn? Why is he waiting for me to show him, oh, by the way dude, I'm gonna put another street in, so I'm gonna show you more strength, I'm gonna just look stronger. Why are you waiting for this street to now bluff raise? Why are you not like bluff raising the flop where I'm in fact gonna be relatively wide with my c-betting, right? The ace-king no diamond, pretty okay texture for his supposed flatting range cutoff versus MP, even though now I'm kind of doubting this guy is gonna be pretty narrow. I think he's gonna be loosey-goosey and pretty wide. Still gonna just check my hand. Once he does check back, we can now try to bluff him off by hand like an underpair. I will try to block him off hand like 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s. I do have some sort of equity and I do block continues and I do unblock underpairs. And also if I do have the best hand versus whatever 2 cards he can have, I don't mind just taking it down and getting the protection. I also can't really check call there. So I'm just gonna bet as a bluff. With the king 9, I'm probably gonna defend, even though it's 3x and UTG. I think I will buy myself the ability to see a flop. And that's a pretty atrocious flop. Pretty trivial folds all across the board. Pretty easy open with the jack 10 offsuited. And just take it down. That's pretty good. And another easy fold. Waiting for something playable. Four 5 is really not gonna cut it. Well, I would have opened the king 10 given the option. Guy not auto reloading, probably weak. Oh, on that flop 4-5 is doing pretty well. Top right, we have another pretty easy fold, which is maybe the theme of this video, having pretty easy folds. Pre-flop at least. 10-9 offsuited, once again a pretty easy fold. Not a lot of playable hands right now. So could I go on a bit of a rant about like some general things? I mean, you generally do want to look at like, you want to check all the data points is what I call it. You want to look at like, what information do I have? How am I perceived to be? Am I perceived to have a strong hand? Am I perceived to have a strong range? Am I gonna have a lot of good hands here? Does it really have like any incentive to raise here as a bluff? Does he wrap a decent bit of like value hands? Can he have value hands? A lot of things, honestly, are kind of like, you don't even have to rationally think about it. A lot of the things kind of are subconsciously a feeling thing. Like in the aces hand, I'm pretty sure most people can agree that like, once you get raised there, you don't have a good feeling. You're not gonna be like fist bump, yay, that's a really good spot. Right? I think like if you actually have those thoughts on that spot, you're probably gonna be a bit delusional there. Like, would wager that like most people watching these videos would see that spot and be like, oh no. The only reason people would come up there justifying a call is like, I have aces. I'm far up my range. I have a good hand. I have to call some hands. Which really are just like excuses. They are just like really like what I do call blind theory reasonings. It's just like blindly applying like some theoretical module which you're not even really certain that you are like confident about. Anyways, back to the playing part. We do have pocket queens, UTG open. We're gonna go for a 3-bet. Our standard sizing is 4x being out of position. We kind of hope to not get 4-bet in these positions because this 4-bet range is going to be incredibly strong, and our 3-bet range to begin with is going to be perceived as pretty strong and just is going to be pretty strong given the positions. And this 4-bet range in response is just going to be even stronger. So given the 4-bet and given no information on the player, I would probably fold the queens there. Given some information on the player, I would probably never flat. I'd probably either jam or fold. Certainly like with some regulars, if you do have like hot stats and like with a reasonable sample, I'm talking about at least 3,000 hands here. On the like, you could arguably jam there sometimes versus a 4-bet, but you do want to have a good reason for it and just not blindly do it. Queen 6, just checking back, realizing my equity, just gonna check fold this flop, jack 8, probably gonna be an open. Queen 6, I mean, I have a pretty good high card, it's a limp pot, I'm not really gonna bluff. I could improve, I could win at showdown. Same principle here. Pocket 5 is good. Queen 3 offsuited is gonna be a fold, King 9 is gonna be a fold, facing an empty open. Another pretty easy fold. So you really want to stay away from like this like blindly applying some like theoretical type of thing. Want to avoid that type of thinking patterns. Want to always think about it like in the most rational and logical way possible. Check the information you have, check the data points you have, and act appropriately. While I do say this, I realize we are approaching the 30-minute mark. This video will be around 30 minutes long, but we're gonna definitely play with this beautiful hand right here. And gonna sit out next to B here, folding the Queen 9 here, folding the Jack 10 off here. And with the Ace King, we have a pretty interesting spot, because a lot of people would probably misplay the spot, even though it's actually a pretty trivial mathematical spot. You can quite easily figure this out with math. I already know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to guide you through it. So first of all, we haven't seen him do anything crazy yet. It's the first open jam we see by him. And now to the like most important part here. just plug this into a calculator, do the math on it. You have to call, like, you're basically getting 1-to-1. You basically want to fold this, by the way. Basically, plug this into the calculator, calculate the odds. You need to call whatever 49 there to win 53 or whatever, right? Do the math on the odds. And then plug Ace King offsuit into like PokerStove, Equilab, whatever, and check out the equity of Ace King off versus like whatever you think his jamming range is going to be there. And if it's not going to be like an insanely wide jamming range, like him just jamming Ace Deuce offsuited there, Ace King is going to be a pretty easy fold there, given you get extremely atrocious odds. Yeah, basically, in order for me to being able to call there, I would have needed information that he did this like 3 times in a row. Then I would grudgingly call the Ace King offsuit there. Just because you just don't really get the odds. Just kind of that easy. Just don't really get the odds. Yeah, like I just plugged it in. You do get about 48% there. This is not accounting for rake. Like, this is pre-rake. With rake, you get about like 50% odds. So you need to find a range where Ace King offsuited does have 50% there. Which, yeah, you can create such a range, right? You can create such a range. But is it really going to be what you open 3-bet jams 100 big blinds with? Is he really going to open jam like an insanely wide range there? Is that really what's happening in these games? And like, just like to illustrate my point, if he does flip over his hands and has a hand like pocket nines, you have to fold. You don't get the odds to call. If he does flip over a hand like pocket fours, you do have to fold. If he does flip over a hand like pocket deuces, you do have to fold. You don't get the odds. Right? For what it's worth, like, if he does flip over the exact same hand, Ace King offsuited, you're gonna probably around break even in that spot. Given you get pre-rake 48%, but you still will rake that hand, right? It's gonna be raked. You're gonna be about breaking even. So even if he does show you the same hand, you're not gonna make money on calling off it. Right? This is all like also not accounting for the fact that like the guy behind occasionally might have queens or might have trapped with aces and kings once in a blue moon, might come in, which is not really happening at any like substantial frequency, but it's gonna happen sometimes. And for example, like if he does open jam ace king there, you do call with ace king, and the guy behind decides to get it in with like his jacks or tens, you are pretty doomed with your ace king there, which is a scenario which is gonna occur sometimes. So calling off there is just pretty bad. And you can pretty easily prove that with simple math. You just don't really get the odds there. You have to assume his range is extremely extraordinarily wide to call off that. So, ending on a somewhat interesting hand, I suppose. This was Sebastian for PokerVIP. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you will be back for my next video series. If any questions, leave them in the comments. Post me a personal message on PokerVIP. And yeah, hope you enjoy poker. Hope you have good sessions. Hope you have good success. I'm out. Peace.